1, 2.
That was already. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can give it.
Thanks, sir. Oh, there's one.
You're okay?
Guy over here. Take them. We rely on you.
Proba, jedan, proba. Test, test, proba, proba. Proba, jedan, proba. Test. Proba, jedan, test, 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 jedan, 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 proba, test, test, test. Proba, test, test, jedan, jedan, jedan.
Tu sam. Jel me čuju? Čuju me?
To tako treba.
1, test 1, 1, 1, test, test. Proba. Proba, test 1, 1, 1, 1. Proba 1, test, 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 1, 1.
Good afternoon. This is the press conference of the International Election Observation Mission to present joint preliminary findings and conclusions on the parliamentary elections in Montenegro. The mission is joint undertakings of the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, and the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe. My name is Irina Sabashuk. I'm from the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and I will be moderating this press conference. At the press conference, the panelists will present their statements. It will be followed by a question-answer session open for journalists only. After the press conference, you will find the paper version of the press release and statement in English and Montenegrin version outside this meeting hall. As for the statement, it will be delivered by Margareta Sederfeld, Special Coordinator and Leader of the Short-Term OSCE Observer Mission, followed by Alexander Pochai, Head of Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly Delegation, Azai Guliyev, Head of the OSCE-PA Delegation, and Roman Jakic, Head of OSCE ODIHR Long-Term Election Observation Mission. Madam Sederfeld, you have the floor.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you for being here at this press conference. Firstly, allow me to thank the Montenegrin authorities for inviting us to observe the parliamentarian election that was held yesterday. Let me also thank all the stakeholders and the people who have interacted with our election observers countrywide. The overall good spirit of cooperation has facilitated the undertaking of our observation exercise. I would also like to praise the important contribution of our colleagues from the OSCE, ODIHR, and from the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. First of all, the parliamentary elections were held in a competitive environment. Fundamental freedom were generally respected. Polling stations officials performed their functions in an efficient manner. Secondly, as far as the campaign is concerned, it was a competitive and characterized by respect of fundamental freedom. The debate on Montenegro's foreign policies prioritized was dominated by the issue of the NATO membership. Unlike the debates on domestic priorities, which lacked distinct policy alternatives, NATO membership proved a divisive topic. Thirdly, electoral contestants convened general message on the necessity to conduct economic, social, and political reforms to create jobs and reduce youth immigration. Fighting corruption, particularly at the highest level, was a dominant topic. Interlocutors also raised concerns about substantial foreign funding being injected into the campaign. As I said earlier, the OSCE, or DEAR, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE have closely worked together to observe and report on these elections. Our mission displays commitment toward Montenegro and the region. And first of all, a commission with the solidarity of the people of Montenegro. Our goal as observers are to secure and observe the election procedure. It's important that international rules are followed. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Sederfeld. I pass the floor to Alexander Pochai, head of the PACE delegation.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. The delegation of Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe observed yesterday elections in 7 teams representing 10 parliamentarians of all or our 5 political groups of 9 different countries. Our team observed in Podgorica, Tuzi, Nikšić, Cetin, Ulcin, Bar and Budva. We welcome the high turnout, which reflects the hope of the Montenegrin people had placed in these elections. For us, it is important that the citizens were able to express their choice in a free and dignified manner. The feedback from our all teams was that the election day went smoothly and without apparent fraud or intimidation, setting aside a few isolated incidents. However, allegations of corruption, foreign funding, political tension and inconsistencies in the legal framework taint the electoral environment, and it is now up to the newly elected parliament to work with the mandate which the voters have given them in order to release the full democratic potential of the country. I would like to talk now more specifically about the legal framework of pre-election period, analyzing TV spots and press articles as well as statements of majority of the politicians we've met from different parties who complained about unproven serious allegations against them. We as observers strongly believe that the legal framework of public speech and the personal and editorial legal responsibility should be improved. Media coverage was pluralistic, but lacked editorial analysis and a sense of responsibility from time to time. There is still the need for a regulatory of self-regulatory body able to impose effective sanction and interior rules. Moreover, despite the recent amendments which took on board many OECC and ODIHR Venice Commission recommendation, some serious shortcomings still remain, including the 24-month residence requirement to vote and to stand as a candidate. Many aspects of the electoral process are left to the regulation of the CEC, which did not always supply guidance to address the gaps in the law. The accuracy of the voters' register was repeatedly called into the question. The fact that the Ministry of Interior did not sign the electoral register within foreseen deadlines did not have probably any legal consequences. However, it is highlighted the political tensions within the country. We call on the State Electoral Commission to tackle this issue without delay. the implementation of campaign financing rules remain an issue. We welcome the creation of the Agency for the Prevention of Corruption. However, it remains to be seen how effective it will be, as reporting requirements on electoral finance and do not provide information in time to enable assessment of electoral financing before the election takes place. There is a general prohibition on foreign funding, but in practice it is very difficult to enforce it. Indeed, we heard of many allegations in this respect. The Parliamentary Assembly and the Venice Commission remain available to cooperate with the Montenegrin authorities to deal with all those issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pocai. Now I give the floor to Mr. Azayguliyev, head of the OSCE PA delegation.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to inform you that our delegation in observation mission included almost 50 people, primarily members of parliament from across the OSCE region. As parliamentarians, we recognize the importance of democratic elections, as we are the result of these elections, and our job is to represent the people who elect us. Thus, it is my privilege as the head of the OSCE delegation to deliver a few key assessments on behalf of the Assembly concerning 16 October parliamentary elections held in Montenegro. The elections have shown the aspiration of the people of Montenegro to be fully engaged in building stable and democratic future of their country. Voters were provided with ample choice. However, the improvements in election administration and media professionalism would benefit future elections. More specifically on the election administration, the State Election Commission met all legal deadlines. However, despite the increased operational capacity, it failed to deliver the expected degree of professionalism at the leadership level. With respect to the media, the landscape proved pluralistic and ensured multiple views. The environment, however, remains politically polarized. It also lacks in-depth investigative reporting and editorial independence. This limits qualitative information available to voters. I was also pleased to observe engagement and enthusiasm of many young people at the polling stations yesterday. In my view, this proves to what extent young people are engaged in contributing to the democratic development of their country. Allow me to conclude by expressing my deep and sincere gratitude to the authorities and the people of Montenegro for their warm welcome and cooperation during our presence here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guliyev. Now I pass the floor to Roman Jakic, head of the OSCE ODIHR Long-Term Election Observation Mission. Please.
Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen. Our mission was deployed, as probably you know, on the 8th of September with the core team consists of 12 international experts based here in Podgorica, 16 long-term observers we deployed across the country. For election day observation, we were also joined by some of 106 short-term observers as well as delegation, and we appreciate that OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. Our role here in Montenegro is the same as it is in all OSCE election observation missions, namely that we have assessed the upcoming election for its compliance with the principles for democratic electoral processes, commitments agreed to by all OSCE participating states and other international standards for democratic election, as well as with national legalization. We have been here for several weeks looking at the legal framework, the election administration, voter registration, the campaign, and the media environment. We have met stakeholders, election administrators, political parties and media representatives, civil society and voters, both here in Podgorica and around the country. We analyzed new legal framework for these elections. There have been, as it was said, significant improvements in the legal framework based on prior recommendations, and our hope is that the efforts in this direction will continue to address the remaining. Mr. Guliev also mentioned, and that's also what we observed in long term, that election administration led by the State Election Commission met all legal deadlines. While open to observers, it did not take all necessary measures to ensure transparency. Despite increased operational and human resources, the SEC still lack of professional capacity and a strong collective leadership, while at times led to technical mistakes and political tensions. A new formula for the composition of lower level commissions allowed for a broad representation of political parties. I must also mention that the representation of women in the electoral administration is low. Although no candidate list was led by a woman, in a positive development, 32% of candidates were women. It remains to be normally seen how many women candidates are elected. Our team and our long team observers in the region observe also the election campaign. We saw that electoral contests were able to campaign without obstruction, and freedoms of association and assembly were respected. However, there was often little detail in terms of policy to support broad campaign promises. Campaign was also characterized by personal attacks. We especially looked at campaign finance during these elections. We saw that while improved, the campaign finance regulatory system is not adequate to ensure transparency and accountability of the process. Availability of public funding for political parties created a more equal playing field. My team also looked at the media as part of our observation. We systematically monitored media coverage of the campaign over a period of 6 weeks. Our monitoring showed that the diverse media environment remains politically polarized and lacks political, investigative, and in-depth reporting, along with the editorial independence. The media has hampered by the absence of an effective regulatory or self-regulatory body capable of actively monitoring media. Our mission will remain in this country to follow the post-election situation, including the possible electoral disputes. Final report, including a recommendation on the electoral process, will be published in 2 months' time. So in closing, I would like publicly thank to my core team, LTOs, STOs, and very capable local staff for good work or excellent work done to produce these documents. And I would like to thank all of you attending this press conference and for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jakic. Now we open the floor for the journalists. Please note that question-answer session is for journalists only. Please clearly state your name and the media outlet you represent, and our colleagues will pass the microphone to you. Any questions?
Serbian language.
A question for Mr. Jakic primarily. Marko Vešović from Daily Dan. Have you dealt with the opposition allegations regarding numerous examples of bringing voters from the diaspora during the election day to cast votes? Have you examined such allegations, and what is your understanding about these allegations?
Thank you.
Should I?
Yes. Please, Mr. Jakic.
Yeah, it was addressed to me, but you can do as well. No, it's just to add. Yes, we were informed by the stakeholders in the process about their views on the electoral process. I must say a few things about this. Our work here is normally reflected in our reports, but we are not in the business of legitimize elections or declaring them valid or invalid. It is somehow our role to observe and assess the election process in light of, as I mentioned before, OSCE commitments, international standards, and national law. And after that, it will be up for the relevant national actors to follow up our recommendation, or in the case you questions, investigates irregularities. Just to say, first in our monitoring, we look at the aspects of the electoral process and assess them in light of OSCE recommendations, as I said, international standards. But secondly, an election is a complex process for us. So we are trying, the picture is, we are looking at in the picture not black or white, but we understand that there is an interest in summing up the assessment in the simple formula. But we try to do justice in our assessment to the complexity of the process and avoid such simplifying things. So that would be, we know about it, but it is up to the national actors to invest all the irregularities which were declared, and we hope that that will be the case.
Thank you. Any more questions? Please clearly state your name and the media outlet you represent.
Aleksandra Mudraša.
Alexandra Mudraša, Vijesti. Can you assess whether yesterday's elections were held in a free and fair environment? We witnessed numerous irregularities. According to you, can these irregularities affect the outcome of these elections? Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Special Coordinator.
Thanks, Madam Moderator, and thanks for the question. It's an important question, and as was said before, our observers have been out. They have observed that how the election is performed according to the international standards, the commitment to OSCE, and those findings have we just presented here. And it's very, very important to stress also that we are not the one who say, and should say, this was wrong or this was right. We have to follow up according to the standards. And the result of the election is owned by the government. And the government will also have to decide if they should follow our recommendation to continue and try to develop their the legal framework and to work. What we have seen before during the election, it was also mentioned about some legal aspects. What we also have seen was said that it was overall in a good spirit of cooperation with our observations. There were irregularities, but there were also examples that it was performed in a good way. And ODIHR have done a very good examination of the form, because we work in a manner where we, in a, a manner that we have developed during several years, where we observe and we make comments and we observe according to special coordinators. And those coordinators do we put together and analyze. The coordinators are according to the international commitments. And this is the ground that we use to assist to develop the democracy. And I would like, because it's ODIHR who have done who have put the statistic together. And I would like to give the word to Mr. Jaksic, because it's his organization who have put the result together. Thanks.
Just to underline, thank you very much for the question. The rule of international observers, just to underline again, is not to serve as an electoral police. It is to somehow increase the transparency, thereby potentially increasing confidence in the electoral process. Any information regarding alleged violations should be found in the public domain, and this should be properly investigated and prosecuted by the appropriate state authorities, again, if such violations are reported. And as I saw from the media and from the informations from the NGOs here, those violations were reported.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Tatjana Debeljević, Televizija Crna.
Tatjana Debeljević, Public Service. The top news yesterday was not only the elections, but the arrests. Some 20 people were arrested under serious charges. Have you took note of that, and what are your comments of such arrests? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sederfeld?
Thanks. Thanks for the question. It's a very important question. And when such things happened, it's have to be investigated in a legal way. And we can't make any take any standings in this, because it needs to be a legal procedure. And if I, a special coordinator, should start to speculate in this, it wouldn't be correct. It might have impact on the investigation that I suppose will follow. Therefore, I can't say that have any other comments on this. Thanks.
Mr. Jakic?
If I just can add this in our statement of preliminary findings and conclusions, you will find on the page 12 where we are talking about election day, that we noted not just suspension of the internet service Viber and WhatsApp, but also announcement of the authorities the detention of 20 persons suspected to perform terrorist attack on the election day.
Thank you. And Mr. Guliev.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. Of course, the incident that we heard yesterday, it is, of course, the thing that the local authorities should take care of. And also, we are trying to focus on our mandate, which is to observe the election and to assess the result of elections that we did. Of course, today we delivered the preliminary result of our observation, and in the coming weeks we will have the full package of the report that the ODIHR is going to deliver to you. So this is why I think that all these kind of incidents should be investigated by the appropriate national law enforcement agencies here. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. Any questions? If not, with this we conclude our press conference. As I said before, the paper version of the press release and statement in English and Montenegrin version are available outside this meeting hall. Thank you.